A 4-month-old golden retriever disappears into the forest, and for 7 long days, no one knows if he's alive. But what he endures, and the way he finds his way back, will leave you in tears. Before we begin, I want to know, what time is it where you're watching this, and where in the world are you right now? Drop it in the comments so we can see just how far Buddy's story travels. And if you believe every animal hero deserves their story told, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now, because here we share real stories of loyalty, courage, and love every single week. It started with a scream. Not the kind born of fear, not the kind that freezes blood, but the sharp, breaking cry of a child watching her world vanish before her eyes. Buddy, come back. 8-year-old Lily's voice cracked as she tore down the dusty country road, her sneakers slapping the hard ground, kicking up clouds of fine dirt that stung her eyes. She could barely see through the blur of tears, but she kept running. Just minutes earlier, Buddy, a golden retriever puppy with fur as soft as morning sunlight, had been tumbling happily in the front yard, chasing a red rubber ball across the patchy grass. His tail wagged like a metronome, his little pink tongue lolling in pure joy. Then it happened. From the far side of the property came a sudden metallic bang, sharp, deep, and jarring. The neighbor's tractor backfiring. To Lily it was just another farm sound. But to Buddy, it was something else entirely, a monster's roar in the stillness of the afternoon. He froze for a second, ears twitching. Then instinct took over. Without so much as a glance back, he bolted. Through the yard, past the garden, straight toward the tree line where the tall pines whispered in the breeze. Buddy, no. Lily's legs pumped harder, but he was fast. So much faster than she'd ever seen him run. By the time she reached the edge of the woods, he was already swallowed by shadows. The next hour blurred into chaos. Lily's mom dropped the laundry basket and joined the search. Her dad, fresh from the fields, still in work gloves, called Buddy's name until his voice was hoarse. They whistled, clapped, shook the treat bag, letting the sound carry. Buddy, here boy. The forest gave nothing back. 2 hours passed. Then 3. The sun dipped lower, spilling gold through the branches, casting long, stretched shadows across the yard. With every minute, the light bled away and the temperature fell with it. The warm hum of summer afternoon turned into the cool, heavy breath of evening. By 6 o'clock, hope was cracking around the edges. The woods here stretched for miles, laced with streams, thickets, and rocky gullies, wild enough to lose a grown man for hours, let alone a puppy who'd never been farther than the back fence. When darkness finally settled, they returned home empty-handed. The porch light cast a pale circle across the gravel drive, a beacon Buddy never reached. That night, Lily refused to sleep. She sat at the wide front window, flashlight resting on the sill, her eyes scanning the driveway for a flash of gold fur. Her small hands gripped the light so tightly her knuckles ached. Every rustle of leaves, every flicker of shadow made her heart leap, only to sink again when it wasn't him. Please, she whispered into the night, please, find your way home. What none of them knew, what even Lily couldn't imagine, was that Buddy wasn't just lost. He was still running, his tiny paws carrying him deeper into the untamed heart of the forest than he had ever dared before, into a place where the rules of home no longer applied. The first night in the forest was colder than Buddy had ever known. The air carried a damp bite, the kind that seeped into his fur and clung to his skin. His breath puffed in soft clouds as he curled himself into the smallest ball his trembling body could manage. He found shelter beneath a fallen log, the bark rough against his back and the smell of rot heavy in his nose. Each gust of wind rattled the dry leaves above, sending tiny shivers down his spine. Strange noises filled the dark, sounds Buddy had never heard from the safety of Lily's yard. An owl hooted somewhere far above, its deep call echoing through the stillness. Branches snapped in the undergrowth, sudden and sharp, making his ears perk and his muscles tense. And then, low, drawn-out, haunting, a coyote's howl rolled across the night like a ghostly warning. Buddy's tiny heartbeat thudded hard against the cold ground, so fast it almost hurt. He didn't understand what it meant to be truly alone until that moment, when every noise seemed bigger, closer, and more dangerous than it was. He tucked his nose under his tail, trying to bury himself in warmth and pretend he was back in his soft bed, with Lily's giggles drifting from somewhere nearby. Sleep came in short, fitful bursts. Hunger wasn't a word Buddy knew, but by the time the first pale light of morning filtered through the trees, It had become a gnawing ache in his belly, a slow, quiet pull that demanded something, anything to fill it. He rose on stiff legs, shaking the damp leaves from his fur. His nose twitched constantly, guiding him in small zigzags through the forest. He found a muddy puddle, its surface rippling when he lapped at it greedily. The water was cool, earthy, and not at all like the clear bowl by Lily's kitchen door, but it eased the dryness in his throat. Further on, he sniffed at clusters of small, dark berries clinging to thorny branches. He bit into one, hopeful, but the bitter taste exploded on his tongue, making him jerk his head back and spit it out. It was nothing like the sweet smell of his dog food, nothing like the scraps of toast Lily sometimes snuck to him under the table. As the day dragged on, Buddy's steps grew slower. The forest floor clung to him. Tiny burrs tangled in his fur, dirt clumped around his paws. He found no comfort here, only more shadows, more strange rustles in the distance. When the second night came, the hunger sharpened into weakness. His legs ached from walking. His tail drooped low. The safety of the fallen log seemed far away now, and he searched for another place to rest. Then, movement, a rustle in the brush. Buddy froze, every muscle locked. Two small, glowing eyes appeared, hovering just above the ground. A fox stepped out, its red fur catching what little moonlight filtered through the canopy. It moved with silent precision, sniffing at the air, closing the distance between them. The fox paused, studying him, measuring whether this trembling little stranger was a threat, prey, or something else entirely. Buddy's fur bristled. His lips curled into the tiniest growl, a sound so faint it was almost swallowed by the night. The fox tilted its head as if amused. Then, without a sound, it turned and vanished into the darkness. Buddy stood there, heart racing, long after the fox had gone. He didn't understand why it left. He only knew one thing. In this wild place, fear could make you freeze, but bravery, even the smallest kind, might keep you alive. And from that moment on, Buddy decided, without knowing it, that he would try to be braver than he felt. Back at home, the world felt quieter. Too quiet. Without the patter of Buddy's paws on the wooden floors, without the sudden jingling of his collar when he'd bound into a room, the house seemed hollow. But Lily's family refused to let that emptiness win. By sunrise the next morning, the plan was already in motion. Flyers were printed in stacks, bright white paper with Buddy's photo front and center, a golden puffball with wide brown eyes and a grin that made him look like he'd just heard a good joke. In bold letters above, missing, 4-month-old golden retriever, answers to Buddy. Lily and her mom taped them to telephone poles, grocery store windows, and gas station doors. The local feed store owner, a kind old man with hands like leather, took one look at the flyer and said, "I'll keep it right here," tapping the counter by the register where every customer would see it. That evening, Lily's dad made a post on Facebook. He chose the happiest picture of Buddy he could find, his ears slightly too big for his head, tongue lolling, tail a golden blur. He typed, "If anyone sees this puppy, please let us know immediately. He's friendly but maybe scared. Last seen near the old Pine Road. Please help us bring Buddy home." The post spread fast. Friends shared it, then strangers. Comments poured in, people offering to keep an eye out, others sending prayers and heart emojis, but no one had seen him. Every day after school, Lily and her dad ventured into the woods. They carried bottles of water, bags of treats, and a squeaky toy Buddy loved. "Buddy," Lily would call, her voice high and clear, stretching into the trees. "Come here, boy." They walked until their legs ached, until their throats felt raw from shouting. The forest was bigger than it looked from their yard, a sprawling tangle of pines, oaks, and thorny underbrush that seemed to rearrange itself with every step. It felt endless. On the 5th day, the sky betrayed them. Morning clouds rolled in thick and heavy, turning the light a dull gray. By noon, the first drops fell, cold and steady. Within an hour, the rain was a curtain, soaking their clothes, plastering Lily's hair to her face. Small streams along the trail swelled into rushing currents, spilling over banks. Mud sucked at their boots, swallowing footprints as quickly as they were made. The smell of wet earth was heavy, and the air carried a chill that bit through their jackets. At one point, they paused under a large oak, rain dripping from the branches above. Lily's dad glanced at her, his jaw tight. "If he's still out there," he didn't finish. His voice was swallowed by the sound of rain. But Lily shook her head, water dripping from her lashes. He has to be." She clung to one unshakable thought: Buddy is smart. Buddy will come back. What she didn't know was that somewhere out there her puppy was surviving, not just on instinct but on tiny, miraculous moments of luck. A dry hollow under a tree during a storm. A puddle of fresh rainwater. The faint smell of something warm and familiar that kept him moving forward. Something deeper than survival alone was pulling him toward her. By the 6th day, Buddy's tiny body had changed. His once round puppy belly was gone, replaced by a hollow curve between his ribs and hips. His golden fur, once soft and brushed smooth by Lily's small hands, was now tangled, matted, and streaked with mud. His paws were raw in places, the pads cracked from endless walking over roots and stones. Every step was slower now, his legs trembling from weakness. And yet, his nose still worked. It had always been his best compass. The same nose that could find a hidden tennis ball under a couch, or lead him to Lily's school backpack the second she walked in the door. Now, in the cold stillness of a damp afternoon, it picked up something faint, but achingly familiar. It wasn't the sharp tang of pine or the earthy smell of wet leaves. It was softer, warmer, human. The faint scent of laundry detergent. His tail gave the smallest wag. He didn't know the word for home, but the smell told him everything. This was the scent of Lily's clothes when she knelt down to hug him. The scent of the blankets on the couch where they'd curl up together. The scent of safety. He turned toward it. The path was rough, if it could even be called a path. Brambles clawed at his fur, tangling and pulling. He squeezed under low branches slick with rain, his belly dragging against cold, wet earth. Twice he slipped on moss-covered rocks and had to scramble back up. A shallow stream cut across his way, and he waded through it without hesitation, the icy water numbing his sore paws. The scent was stronger now. It pulled at him, a string he couldn't see but felt in every step. And then, something else. A sound. It came faintly at first, almost hidden beneath the distant rush of water and the creak of trees swaying in the wind. But it was there, a voice. High, trembling and calling through the woods. Buddy? He froze, ears straining forward. His heart leapt, skipping several beats. That voice, that was her. He tried to bark, but his throat was dry, and the sound came out as little more than a hoarse whine. He took a deep breath, forcing strength into his lungs, and barked again. Just once. Weak, but sharp enough to slice through the trees. Far away, Lily stopped in her tracks. She turned toward the sound, her rain-soaked hair sticking to her cheeks, her chest rising and falling fast. That was him, she whispered, her eyes wide. Her dad looked at her skeptically, but she was already moving, her boots splashing through shallow puddles, her small hands pushing aside branches. She didn't need to question it. She knew. Somewhere ahead, Buddy's tail began to wag again, just barely. His legs ached, his lungs burned, but the smell of home and the sound of her voice pushed him forward. And with that, the real race began. Lily's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. The forest floor was slick with rain, every step a gamble between running fast and keeping her balance. Branches clawed at her arms, wet leaves slapped against her face, but she barely noticed. Somewhere ahead, Buddy was barking again, louder this time. The sound was raw, almost desperate, but underneath it, she swore she could hear hope. Buddy, keep calling to me, she screamed, her voice cracking. The rain came down in steady sheets, dripping from the canopy above, blurring her vision. She wiped at her eyes with her sleeve and pushed forward, her boots sinking into patches of mud. Every bark was like a beacon in the storm, pulling her closer. And then, through the tangled undergrowth, she saw it, a flicker of gold against the deep greens and browns of the forest. It was just a flash, quick as a heartbeat, but she knew. Her breath caught. Dad, there? She pointed, her voice breaking with excitement. Buddy emerged briefly from behind a clump of ferns, and the sight hit her like a punch. He was limping, one paw barely touching the ground. His fur was tangled, heavy with water, and streaked with mud. His body looked smaller than she remembered, as if the forest had been slowly stealing pieces of him over the past week. But his tail, oh his tail. It wagged with such force it seemed almost to lift his thin frame off the ground. That tail spoke a language all its own. I found you. You found me. She took a step forward, but then, disaster. A massive tree, long since fallen, stretched across the path between them. Its thick trunk was slick with moss and rain, its sprawling branches tangled like a barricade. Her dad moved first, testing the trunk with his boot. "I'll climb over," he started, but his foot slipped instantly on the wet bark. He grabbed at a branch to steady himself, shaking his head. "No good. We'll have to go around." Lily felt panic spike in her chest. "We can't go around. He's right there." Her dad's tone was firm. "Lily," but she didn't wait to hear the rest. Dropping to her knees, she plunged her hands into the cold, sticky mud and began crawling under the narrow gap where the trunk hovered above the ground. The space was barely big enough for her to squeeze through, and sharp branches scratched at her arms, leaving thin red lines across her skin. She could smell the damp, earthy scent of rotting wood as she pushed forward, the sound of Buddy's whimpers growing clearer with every inch. Her jeans soaked through instantly, her elbows scraping against the gritty ground, but none of it mattered. All she could think was, "Don't let him run again. Don't let him vanish." Finally she broke through to the other side, and there he was. Buddy stood a few feet away, shivering, his big brown eyes locked on hers. For a split second, the world went silent. The rain, the wind, her dad's voice calling from the other side of the log, everything faded. It was just the two of them staring at each other in disbelief. Then his legs gave out. Lily lunged forward, catching him just before he hit the muddy ground. His body was so light in her arms it made her chest ache. She pressed her face into his wet fur, breathing in that faint, familiar scent of home beneath the dirt and rain. "You're okay," she whispered, voice trembling. "You're okay now." Buddy gave a single tired lick to her cheek as if to say, "I knew you'd come." For a moment, time froze. The rain seemed to hush, as if the forest itself were holding its breath. The wind softened, and all the small noises of the woods, the drip of water from leaves, the distant croak of a frog, faded into the background. The only thing that existed in that moment was the weight of Buddy's tiny, trembling body in Lily's arms. His fur was cold and heavy with rain, clinging in wet clumps against her jacket. It carried the smell of damp earth, crushed leaves and pine needles, but underneath, faint and almost hidden, was something she knew better than her own heartbeat, that warm, clean scent of home. Lily pressed her face into his neck, her tears mixing with the rainwater on his fur. "I knew you'd come back to me," she whispered, voice shaking. "I knew it." Buddy didn't have the strength to wriggle or bounce the way he used to, but he did something better, something deeper. He lifted his head just enough to give her cheek a slow, deliberate lick, then another. Each one carried a quiet story. "I found cold puddles to drink from. I curled under roots when the rain came. I followed scents that reminded me of you. And I kept going because I knew you were looking for me." Lily clung to him, almost afraid that if she let go, the forest would take him back. Her hands roamed over his bony ribs and knotted fur, and she felt a pang of anger toward the world for letting him suffer this much. But the anger faded as quickly as it came. What mattered was that he was here. Her dad's voice broke through softly. "Lily?" He stepped around the fallen tree and crouched beside them. For a moment, he just looked, his strong hands resting on his knees, eyes glistening with a mix of relief and disbelief. Then he shrugged off his thick jacket and wrapped it around them both, tucking the edges so Buddy was completely cocooned. "Let's get him home," he said gently. Lily nodded, her throat too tight for words. The walk back through the forest felt different now. The rain was still falling, but it was warmer somehow, gentler. Every step toward home felt lighter, even though her arms ached from holding Buddy's fragile frame. She could feel his shallow breaths against her chest, steady but slow. When they reached the edge of the trees, the house came into view, a soft glow spilling from the porch light, cutting through the misty air. Buddy stirred, lifting his head just enough to see it. His tail, matted and heavy with water, gave a single wag. It wasn't much, but it was enough to send a new rush of warmth through Lily's chest. "You're home, Buddy," she whispered, her voice breaking into a smile. "You made it." And with that, his eyes closed, his body finally relaxing fully in her arms. He didn't need to fight anymore. He was safe. That night, Buddy lay curled on a thick, soft blanket by the crackling fireplace. The warmth from the flames seeped into his tired body, loosening muscles that had been tense for days. A silver bowl sat empty beside him, licked clean after his first full meal in a week. The smell of roasted chicken still lingered in the air, and his belly, no longer hollow, rose and fell with slow, contented breaths. His paws twitched in sleep, little jerks and kicks as if he were still running through the woods. But in these dreams, there was no thunder of fear in his chest, no cold rain soaking his fur. This time he was running toward something good. Toward Lily, toward the front porch light, toward the sound of her laughter. Lily sat cross-legged beside him, her chin resting in her hands, watching every rise and fall of his chest. She reached out now and then to gently smooth the fur between his ears, careful not to wake him. Every so often she whispered softly, "You're never getting lost again. Not ever." Her parents moved quietly around the house as if afraid to disturb the peace. But their faces carried the same quiet joy, a deep, bone-level relief that the worst had passed. The house felt alive again. Word of Buddy's survival spread quickly through their small town. The next morning, the feed store clerk, the same man who had taped Buddy's flyer to his counter, teared up when Lily's dad came in with the news. "Knew that little fella was a fighter?" he said, his voice gruff. By afternoon, neighbors began stopping by the house. Mrs. Harper from 2 doors down brought a bag of squeaky toys, for his bravery. Mr. Jensen from across the road left a basket filled with treats and a brand new leash. Even strangers who had seen Lily's missing dog post online dropped off gifts, handmade blankets, chew bones, and cards filled with warm wishes. On social media, Lily's original post transformed overnight. The photo of a missing puppy was replaced with a video of their reunion, the moment she dropped to her knees in the mud and scooped him into her arms. The clip spread far beyond their town, shared by thousands, gathering comments from people who had never met them but felt the weight of the moment. "Crying at my desk," one wrote. "Proof that love never gives up," said another. And Buddy? He was different now. The forest had left its marks, not just in the burrs that still clung to his fur or the faint scratches along his legs, but in the way he moved. He was a little braver, a little more sure of himself. His eyes held a glint of quiet strength, the kind that comes from facing the unknown and making it back. But beneath it all, he was still the same puppy, the same golden ball of joy who would follow Lily anywhere. Only now he knew with absolute certainty what she had always known, that no matter how far he wandered, she would follow him too. Buddy's story is a reminder that love never gives up, and neither should we. If this journey touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Tell us in the comments, how far would you go to bring your best friend home? And if you want more true stories of animal heroes, loyalty, and survival, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss one. Because here, every week, we celebrate the incredible bond between humans and animals, a bond worth protecting no matter the distance.